everybody, and welcome to the second IBJ webinar. My name is Ray Gervin. I'm the publisher and owner of International Bulk Journal. This webinar will concentrate on dry bulk ports and terminals. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected the whole world, and dry bulk terminals and ports are facing unprecedented challenges. IBJ has a history of bringing our industry together through the magazine, e-newsletter, website, and of course the IBJ Awards, which for obvious reasons have been postponed until the end of next year. But we've brought the world together once again virtually through this series of webinars. And we brought together an excellent panel too. I'll introduce them in a minute, but I'd like to thank them all collectively now for giving up some of their valuable time today. Thank you to our sponsors, to Senalia, Telestack, North Sea Port, FedNav, Brooks Sewatel, and Fleet Management. The webinar will be 90 minutes long, and in the middle we'll have a break where our sponsors will show some excellent videos. Thank you, of course, to everybody watching worldwide, all of you who have joined. Another great response with hundreds watching, and it's lovely to have you with us. And thank you for sending in your questions. In the second half of the webinar, we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. And so to today's panelists. We have Rodney Corrigan, the president of Logistics Stevedoring in Canada. Logistec is based in Montreal and operates 63 different, mainly bulk and break bulk, but also container terminals right through North America across 36 ports, from the frozen north of Canada to Florida and the Gulf of Mexico. So a major player in North America. Stuart Cullen is with us. He's the executive chairman of Solent Stevedores here in the UK. Solent Stevedores operates throughout the UK, the Channel Islands and Singapore. Their dry bulk terminals handling a range of commodities are at the core of their business, and they also have expertise in containers, projects, fresh produce, and the cruise market. Astrid Villeberg is with us, the Director of Commercial Affairs from North Sea Port, the cross-border port, cross-borders being Belgium and the Netherlands. North Sea Port was founded nearly 3 years ago from the merger of the Port of Ghent and Zeeland seaports, and it's a true dry bulk specialist, a central hub in Europe, and now the 8th largest seaport by volume of goods. Axel Matten, the Chief Executive Officer of the Port of Hamburg Marketing, is with us. The Port of Hamburg, of course, is Germany's largest port and is one of the world's most flexible, high-performance universal ports. More than 40 million tons of bulk cargo is handled every year in Hamburg. Wim Dillon, the Director of International Development at the Port of Antwerp, is with us. Port of Antwerp, of course, needs no introduction. It's the second largest port in Europe and a truly global player, handling a wide range of bulk freight with its excellent hinterland connections and a great cost-effective alternative for bulk transportation. And last but not least, because I've done this by going from west to east, so that's the only reason you're last, Roger. We have Roger Klaskan, who is the Chief Commercial Officer of RAK ports, Ras Al Khaimah ports in the United Arab Emirates. Ras Al Khaimah is the northernmost emirate in the UAE, and RAK ports have the benefit of a strategic location with access to abundant natural resources, huge cargo handling capacity, and the ability to berth the world's largest ships. Saka port and Free Zone alone is capable of handling in excess of 100 million tons of cargo annually. And so that's our panel. So it's over to them, really. I'm going to ask each of them to give a short introduction and their opening statement, just for a minute or so, and then we'll get into some questions. So, Rodney, you first of all, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you very much. As you said, my name is Rodney Corrigan. I'm based here in Montreal. Logistec stevedoring operates in both Canada and the United States. And, we're fortunate to have a pretty equal split between handling containers, bulk, primarily dry bulk, and break bulk cargoes, from the Canadian Arctic and as far west as Churchill, Manitoba. We're now doing some work out in British Columbia, up in Kitimat, and then all the way down to Florida and the U.S. Gulf. So, very fortunate to handle a good mix of cargo. The pandemic has been rather challenging, and I know we'll talk more about that over the next 90 minutes, but it's impacted each one of our sectors a little bit differently. And so very happy to be here and to talk about that. And thank you for the opportunity to be on the panel.
Hello, Stuart, are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you, Ray.
Okay, your opening statement, please.
Okay. Hi, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me. I own Southern Stevedores. It's started out as a dry bulk business 25 years ago. I was the founder, and now we're operating in a number of different sectors. I would say bulk probably accounts for probably 25 to 30% of our turnover. We're also operating containers with rail, container storage, a lot of project cargo, fresh produce, and a lot of cruise ship turnarounds in Singapore and Southampton. We operate in probably around 13 terminals altogether, and handling around 3 million tons of bulk, all told. So we're operating in Southampton, Grimsby, Immingham, London, London Gateway, Singapore, and now just very recently St. Malo. So hopefully we'll have a good webinar today, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. Astrid, over to you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ray, for giving North Seaport this opportunity to participate in this webinar. Thank you to the entire team behind. Even if we are at a very safe distance, it's nice to meet fellow speakers and all of you across the world. Thank you for your introduction of North Seaport. So for those of you who do not know us, we are, as Ray said, the cross-border merger port of the Belgian port of Ghent and the Dutch ports of Terneuzen and Vlissingen. So we rank at the top European ports in terms of volumes of goods, number 8 and number 5 in the Hamburg-Le Havre range. Number 3 when you look at the added value. So we consider ourselves truly a dry bulk specialist, and we are home to more than 500 companies. North Seaport is also well connected to the hinterland. So as for today's topic, well, pandemic is hitting all of us. So I'm really looking forward to this webinar and to exchange experiences with all of you. So thank you very much.
Okay, over to Hamburg and Axel.
Everybody can hear me. It was a little bit difficult here. I'm very happy to be invited to this webinar, and I'm delighted to be here and to meet all of you and to present the biggest German port and the biggest German bulk port as well by far.
Okay, are you still there? Okay, we'll come back to Axel in just a minute. Let's go over to Wim.
Hello everybody. Wim Dillon here, Port of Antwerp. I think in my opening statement I would like to say that we live in indeed unprecedented times. We're facing another major global disruption, and it's not the first this century alone. We've had three, 9/11, we had 2008, the global financial crisis, but I think it's safe to say that this is the biggest so far. The impact is yet unknown, but the Port of Antwerp, second largest port of Europe, and also an important dry bulk gateway, we do everything necessary to keep our port fully operational.
Great. Okay. Thank you. And finally, again, Roger, Roger in the UAE.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Ras Al Khaimah is probably not a very household name in the world. Most people know Abu Dhabi and Dubai, but Ras Al Khaimah actually is the hometown of the largest dry bulk port in the region. Sakar Port handles around 70 million tons per annum, predominantly export to serve the quarry industry in the region. Most of our markets are in our proximity, so it's the Gulf, India, Bangladesh. Those are the main markets. And we are now helping our quarry customers to unlock markets further afield, in particularly Singapore. You can use limestone as crush sand for land reclamation too, so that is a new opportunity for us. There's 5 ports in total. We are 1,100 people. It's a bit of an odd operation for a dry bulk port to operate the port with 22 mobile harbor cranes. But because of diversity and the degradation of our products, that is the best methodology that we have. As Rodney said, we'll dwell upon the pandemic impact. We were hit as well, but probably we had one of the fastest bounce backs in the industry. We are back to pre-COVID levels again, and it's mainly because our materials are used in the building and construction industry, and those are less hit than maybe the fast-moving goods that the other ports are handling. So thanks for the opportunity to shine a bit of light on what is the most unknown of the Emirates. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Roger. Axel, I know we lost you for a few seconds at the end, so I'm going to come to you for the first question, and if you want to add something in, that's up to you. And I thought the first question should be to do with how all of your different ports and terminals, which are quite diverse. We've got some mega ports and we've got some smaller specialist terminal operators. How have you been performing really in terms of the volumes and the throughputs compared to what you normally do during this past 7 or 8 months? So maybe you could take us through that for Hamburg first, Axel.
Yeah, first of all, we had a very strong year 2019, and when we look into the agriculture products, for example, they were rising up in 2019 with 26% in Hamburg. Very special reasons, of course. Russia closed down their trade, and France closed down their trade in the first half year of 2020. So Hamburg was selling whatever they had in the storage and in the silos, and so that was the reason for the agri products. Of course, we had some issues in iron ore and coal, and this, of course, due to the world situation, and then a little bit due to the COVID-19 situation as well, because the steel production was a little bit not closed down, but was put a little bit further or less output, and so therefore we didn't need that much iron ore and that much coal, and that's compensated on the coal side actually, because they was importing some different coal for energy.
Axel? Okay, I think we have that same problem again. So we'll come back to him. We'll come back to Axel if we can. There's some problems there in Hamburg. Wim, I'll turn to you with the same question concerning the throughputs of bulk cargo during this pandemic time.
Yes, if I look at the figures, there's no denying that a lot of a major drop of dry bulk cargoes was a fact, especially in the first half year. But we see a little bit of restoration. What is remarkable, though, is that, let's say, with regard to exports of dry bulk, we maintain even gain after 9 months, some percentages. So we grew, in fact, compared to the same period last year in our exports, albeit slightly. But the real decrease is the import of a number of major bulk products, which in fact was already the case over the past 2-3 years. We saw, let's say, a decline that has to do with the fact of the disappearance of the steel industry in the southern part of Belgium. So we're not really importing coal and iron ore like we did in the past. We still do, but not in the same significant amount. But I think basically the message was, in the beginning of the year, it was very unclear how long it would last, the lockdown. And I think there was a lot of consumption of the stocks that were abundantly available in the port of Antwerp, preventing new imports. And we see a restoration in that slight recovery over the past 2-3 months.
Okay. Axel, we seem to lose you occasionally, yeah. And I don't know if you finished off what you were saying there when we had to move on. So, yeah, if you just want to finish that off, no problem.
It's a bit difficult with the connection here. I don't know. Everything is said.
Okay. Well, if it happens again, we'll give you a second or two, and if not, it seems to reconnect. Yeah. So we'll just come back to you. Stuart, same question to you, really. So, how have your terminals been performing during this time of lockdown compared to how they normally do?
Okay. Well, I would say so far, touch wood. We've been very, very fortunate in that we just had a little downturn in March and April and first half of May on a couple of products. But our terminals are quite diverse in the products that we handle. So in actual fact that they've caught up again, and our overall volume across like sort of 4 terminals, agri product never changed. We never had any difference. It just kept going very, very nice and steady. A little bit of a turn down with the building products just for a couple of months. The scrap metal has been steady, and aggregates are now back up where they were before. In fact, we've seen an increase in sugar in East London. And so, to be honest, we would not, I think this time last year, I was a bit worried in April, May, because it's hit our business very hard in other areas. But the dry bulks business, which is how we originally started, God bless it, it was really looked after us. And so we're actually overall, I think, just around 20,000, 30,000 tons up to where we were last year. So we're probably going to overall again do around 3 million tons. So, wow. But just from a commercial point of view, we've been fortunate. Nice and steady.
That's interesting. That sugar business is very interesting. It's Tate and Lyle, is it, or their place in London?
The Tate and Lyle.
Does that bulk? Does that come in bulk and you bag it? I mean, how does the operation work?
It comes in bulk on a jetty berth, discharged with cranes on a jetty, and then conveyor into the store. And we don't know for sure, but I'm quite hopeful that might be one of the few companies that might benefit from Brexit.
Okay.
And we could see our volumes there go back up from what is today, 200,000 tons up to maybe significant again above 1 million.
Okay. Well done, Stuart. You're the first to mention Brexit.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Turning to Rodney, well, I've been in touch with many ports around the world and terminal operators, and some of the volume throughput during this period has remained flat. Some has actually increased, and they've had some record years, and some has gone down. And then they're talking about a V-shaped recovery. I mean, how has it been throughout your ports as a whole, your terminals as a whole in North America? And are there any any standout performances as well?
Excuse me. I think as a whole, we've been pretty fortunate, all things considered. We were deemed an essential service on both sides of the border in Canada and the US. Some products have the volumes have fallen off a little bit. We were fortunate that March and April we weren't hit as hard as everyone would have thought. I think that's primarily cargo was already on the water or had been delivered to the port to be shipped, so the impact wasn't felt right away. But as we moved into the late spring and early summer, we started to see some cargoes fall off and some others pick up. Stuart mentioned sugar. We've seen the same thing with our sugar volumes here in Canada, where it's essentially record years. With restaurants being closed, we're all learning how to cook again, so people are consuming at a great rate. Terminals where we handle grain, it's moving out at tonnage levels that we haven't seen in a long time. Some of our iron ore export ports have done very well. Whereas the flip side, when the pandemic hit, the automobile industry basically just crashed in the United States, which impacted steel consumption. And with steel production in the US being at record lows, at levels that they haven't seen in 10 to 15 years, the movement of iron ore on the Great Lakes basically shut down. So that affected some of our other terminals. And then I think, as the governments scrambled to try and figure out what to do with the pandemic and to stop the spread, some of the mines that we serve were actually shut down for periods of time, which brought production to a grinding halt as they just depleted whatever they had in stockpiles. But I think, as you look at it, as we've moved through the summer and things have started up again, the last couple of months, we're starting to see some favorable signs in the economy. And, the volumes are returning to, I'm not going to be so bold as to say pre-COVID levels, but we're getting closer every week. And some are already there. So it's been a real mixed bag. And, with our network, I know you're familiar with Logistec, with the 60 some odd terminals that we operate. The network does provide us with some level of comfort and protection from these swings. So it's been okay, all things considered.
Okay. Astrid, the same question to you on volumes and throughput.
Yes. Well, I heard already some important tendencies and trends and that are also recognizable for us. But in general, the first 9 months of this year, well, we had a terminal throughput that decreased more or less by 12%. The decrease was far less for dry bulk, like -6, but still decrease. But in order to really judge on the situation, we need to have also a closer look into the various activities and products. For example, as also previous speakers already indicated, food, fertilizer, agricultural products, they kept up at the same level as in 2019. And also for us, this was an excellent year, as Axel already also indicated. Also scrap increased substantially, so this is also a good sign. On the other hand, we had like a really decrease in terms of fossil fuels, as well as iron ore and metallurgical coal. Also, automotive had a rough time in spring, so recognizable as well to what Rodney said. But let me also, give two positive elements in my answer. Like the first one is that already in the third quarter this year, we see that the decrease has been less steep. So we also forecast or expect to have more of a flattening of the curve by the end of this year. And the second point is that, well, thanks also to the merger North Sea Port had, well, our portfolio became much more diverse, and I think this is a true asset and has also proven key to overcome crisis situations. So therefore, we are quite hopeful.
Okay, yeah, okay. Roger, I'll come to you now, and I promise I won't always come to you at the end. Yeah, so Ras Al Khaimah's throughputs and volumes, and particularly interested in how the construction industry has been performing in that part of the world, and how important that is to you as well. Over to you, Roger.
Thanks, Ray. In a normal month, we do around 5 million tons, and that is a split between limestone, which is used for the steel industry, predominantly going to India. Aggregates is around 40% of our volume normally, and that goes predominantly to the Gulf, where Kuwait is the biggest market. And clinker is a base product for cement, predominantly goes to the region, and recently, increasingly to Bangladesh. So these three markets in total for us is around 80% of our volume. India has shown a dip as from February, March, April, and then picked up quite rapidly again. I think the Indian government has taken the stance that while COVID is happening, you can't put a lid on it. They just basically let it run and let it happen. And that showed in the industries. So with our materials, we are less impacted by the COVID as such. But Kuwait was very badly hit for a number of reasons. There was a succession issue with the emir, the ruling sovereign in Kuwait, being ill, and there was some succession issues. And overall, the port more or less collapsed because of the lack of trucks. So the port of Shuaibah in Kuwait came to a grinding halt. So people were not sending ships from Saka port. So India picked up rather rapidly. So we've seen a true V-shaped recovery. The decline started in March, and then in June we bounced back. So in June we were really at half our normal volume, but now we're back to 5 million tons with a steady trend going forward. We've used that period actually to recalibrate ourselves, look at our operations, see what we had done. We were free of COVID for a while, and then we were suddenly hit. And because our workers live close to the port in their labor accommodation, so if one port worker gets it, you have 300 positive cases. We managed to deal with it, so we had no operational disruption because of the lower volume. If we would have the full volume, then probably would have struggled. And we have also used this opportunity to look at new markets. We're very spoiled by the massive volumes that we have, so it's always contracts go by the million tons, and suddenly you have to look for business of 50,000 tons here, 150,000 tons there. So it makes you quite humble again, and to redress issues. But overall, we bounced back. We also changed our commodity mix. We are less dependent now on some of our bigger customers. So overall, financially, we'll probably surpass our 2019 result, which is a truly remarkable achievement, I think.
Good. Okay, I'll move on to the next round of questions, and really, I would describe it as the backbone of our industry. Really, the people during this time of pandemic. So Stuart, I mean, how have you been ensuring the safety of your terminal and dock workers, and what have you learned as the months have gone on? How are you doing things differently?
Okay, I mean, we've done a lot of the obvious things to begin with. Just mobile sanitization stations, improved our signage all around the terminals. Obviously, when we're the restroom facilities and things like that have been probably the most difficult to manage. toolbox talks and things like that. We've actually now got developed something in Singapore, which is like a face recognition program for doing the toolbox talk, which is we're hoping to bring back over into the UK now, which will make it a little bit easier. So they just log on their mobile and log in remotely, which is helpful. I think the biggest thing of all, by far really, has just been to give the guys some comfort, give the people in the company some comfort that there is an end to it. You've got some kind of managed protocol. Yes, we're changing things. We are altering the protocol, obviously outside on the key to a degree with the this social distancing and all this kind of thing, but in the office with some people working from home, some people not, the social distancing and the screens and all this kind of thing. They all get that, they all understand it, but it's giving them some assurance and around the future of the company and their role in it. And whilst everything else in their life is going crazy, and some of them, obviously, their personal circumstances can kind of alter substantially. For me, the biggest thing of all is to keep giving these guys and girls some comfort about our attitude to protecting them, not just health-wise, but their mental health. So we've invested quite a lot in mental health programs and being able to sort of have the ability to phone up anonymously and talk to people if they're feeling depressed, if they're feeling down. It's the actual protocol for dealing with people, particularly we're still doing a little tiny bit of cruise business, obviously not with passengers, but just on the exchanges and things like that. Protocols for that are quite straightforward, very strict, how you interact with people, but the key to keeping the guys and girls upbeat, I think, is just that communication, telling them the truth, the difficulties that the company is facing commercially, or where it's actually bounced back very quickly, letting them know that. And that has been, for us, we've had a very positive response of everybody, and so far we've had very little problem.
Good, and typical of you, Stuart, to think of people's feelings, of course. Stuart, I know.
It's crucial, you know.
Wim, I'll turn to you next, and of course, keeping the dock workers safe is one thing, but for a massive port like Antwerp, of course, you have a lot of ships' crews in at any one time, and we know there's a crisis there too as well. So just in general, how have you been ensuring safety and security?
Well, it goes without saying that as from the beginning of the lockdown earlier this year, we immediately created a multidisciplinary but also cross-border task force. You have to remember the River Scheldt is shared with our Dutch neighbors and serves the various actors of the nautical chain serve not only Antwerp but the other ports like Flushing, Ghent, Terneuzen as well. So it was extremely important to get all the noses in the same direction and to make sure that whatever measures were to be taken to protect people, that they were uniform and that they were very clearly communicated. I think we succeeded in doing that thanks to this task force. With regard to crews, obviously ships that enter our port had to make sure that they got a clean bill of health before arriving in our port and allowed in our port. But even then, you cannot totally exclude a breakout of COVID. We had such a case, but I think we were very well able to contain it as from the beginning. And after 2 weeks of quarantine, the ship thoroughly cleaned and with a new crew was able in leaving our port. So without any disruption whatsoever. Now, with regard to crew changes, it needs to be pointed out that the Port of Antwerp has always been a port that allowed for crew changes. That was not always the case in the rest of the world, but we understand perfectly well the need to do efficient crew changes, even in this pandemic. And as for our part, I think we facilitated it as much as possible so that crews could change. Obviously, the decreased availability of flights to the rest of the world had an impact as well. But I can safely say that when taking care of safety and security of staff, it also included the sailing crew.
Yeah. Thank you, Wim. I'll move with the same question to Astrid then, and North Sea Port.
Yes, thank you. So as Wim already indicated, so right after the start of this crisis, task force has come into place in order to make sure that agreements are made and rules and regulations are as much as possible implemented in the same way in order to remain what is most essential. This is to keep the port up and running, and the entire nautical chain has always remained 100% operational. So this has been first and foremost a key issue. Of course, very strict rules regarding health and safety were implemented as soon as a ship entered North Sea Port. And because of also this cross-border character of us, agreements between the Dutch and the federal and the Belgian Federal Health Services have been made also, such as the Maritime Declaration of Health, which had to be filled out before entering North Sea Port, and of course was strongly monitored. When we look at the terminal operators, of course, they have also taken their additional safety measures, such as temperature measurements, additional staff to sanitize and disinfect working places. Unfortunately, we had to close down the temporarily, of course, the seafarers' homes. But we have put a service in place so that at least those people could still keep in touch with their families. In general, also some crews were reluctant to leave also the ship, as obviously they did not want to bring the virus on the ship. But so far we have been able to keep track of everything, put health and safety measures well in place, and had actually various task forces monitoring on a daily basis what's going on.
Okay, good. Roger, I'll turn to you now and how you've been ensuring the safety of and security of workers, and also with that question of how have you learned and maybe made adjustments as the months have gone on?
Our situation here is slightly different than in other ports, in as much that our workforce lives in proximity of the port. So that has an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is you can keep control of their whereabouts because they don't go home and interact with other people. So the risk of contagion is less. But if they get it, the risk is a lot higher because then your entire workforce could be infected. So what we have done, we as a contingency measure, we have set up the teams so that we would not have all crane operators infected or all pilots or all tugmasters. So we had them in teams. We also created quarantine facilities within our port. So the moment we had a positive case, we did a track and trace already, the electronic track and trace right from the start. So that allowed us to keep the operation uninterrupted. And as Stuart said, it is the mental health is a big thing. You must also bear in mind that we have no Emiratis working in the port. We have a multinational workforce of Indian nationals, Pakistanis, Nepalese, Bangladeshi. So we also had a lot of our workers stuck abroad and they couldn't go back to work here. and as well as the reverse, people not being able to take their leave and go home and see their loved ones. So that has put a strain on us in doing it. As I said, we had in June the worst period, but as from then onwards, people became aware. We believe that the number of positive infections has been, in fact, far higher than what we officially know. We had a lot of asymptomatic cases, people that didn't suffer. Fortunately, we had no fatalities, which is a very positive thing. So we're out of the woods now, so to speak. But we also learned how to adjust ourselves to this new normal. With us, working from home is really not an option because you can't. We don't have remote mobile harbor cranes, regrettably. So we have to keep the job going. What we did see, particularly on ships, that the stress levels there went up as well. Edgy crews, people getting nervous, the government control agencies being very reluctant to go on board. So we had to make a lot of adjustments on that side as well, with obvious delays on the process sometimes when operations finish, but still having to take about 6-7 hours to complete the formalities. Fortunately, that is all behind us now, but we learned from it how to make do with less cranes, less operators, and still manage the productivity. So it was a learning experience. Hopefully, we've seen the worst of infections for our people, but the stress levels of not being able to go home or return is a big issue for us here.
Okay, thank you, Rodney. Sorry, Roger. I'll turn to Rodney now, and I mean the same question to you, but of course, bearing in mind that you're operating really across virtually a whole continent.
Yeah, thank you. We've done a lot of the same things that the other panelists have mentioned so far. You know, I think from the outset, you know, our health and safety department really engaged with our local port management to comply with, you know, U.S. Coast Guard rules, all of the regs that Transport Canada was putting out, and you know, and unfortunately, those things sometimes get applied differently from one region to the next. So that in itself presented a little bit of a challenge. And then you have the fact that, you know, we're operating in areas that COVID hadn't found yet. We're operating in other areas such as Florida and Texas, which are significant hotspots. And then you have, well, I'm sitting in our Montreal office today, which is in a downtown city. It's a high rise and people take public transit to work. So each one of these things posed different challenges that, you know, that our health and safety professionals had to figure out ways to keep everybody safe. You know, when I look at specifically ship crews, as far back as early March, we modified all of our standard operating procedures to manage our interaction differently with the ships. You know, the automatic reaction of everyone on the shore is, oh my God, there's a ship coming into port, it's dangerous. Reality is the ship's been on the water for 30 years. It's probably safer for the people on the ship than it is for us on shore. So how do we make sure we don't bring the virus on board to them? And at the same time, Transport Canada and U.S. Coast Guard had directives out about, you know, how do you deal with embarkation, disembarkation of crew, and coming ashore, and all this stuff. So you know, we had to exist in all of that. So you know, we changed a lot of our operating procedures. Just something as simple as signing paperwork. You know, no one goes into the accommodation anymore. Everything's done electronically. You know, we have interaction with the master before the ship arrives to make sure everyone on board is okay. And likewise, we're confirming that our people are okay. We make sure that, you know, if we're using ship's cranes, that the cabins have been properly disinfected, and just doing things of that nature. And then, you know, for gaining access to our facilities, back in March and April, no one was allowed in. I mean, if it wasn't absolutely essential that you go to the vessel, you didn't enter the terminal. Over time, we've loosened that up a little bit. But we're still taking temperature scans on a daily basis. We have daily and weekly protocols. We have checklists that the terminals go through. We increased cleaning protocols. Plexiglass was put up between workstations. Any staff members that could work from home do work from home. Like Roger said, we have to come in and operate the equipment. We don't have all that stuff remote control yet, but other than the workers that were essential to operate the terminal on a day-to-day basis, we kept people at home. And we just really focused, there's a lot of effort goes into signage, daily and weekly messaging to our employees and our staff about social distancing, wearing a mask. We made face coverings mandatory probably about 3 or 4 months ago in all of our facilities. Some places even wear face shields. All in all, I think given when you consider that we handle over 4,000 ships a year, we've been very fortunate so far, touch wood, that we haven't had that many positive cases.
Good. Okay, thanks, Rodney. And finally, Axel, on this one, I'll come to you, and then we'll be going to our commercial break a minute or two late, which is not bad. Yeah, Axel, the mighty port of Hamburg, and how you've been keeping people safe.
Basically, as all the panelists and colleagues already said, I mean, the same thing we have done here. Maybe we had a tiny little bit of an advantage, as the Germans are usually very ahead of everything and very used to regulations, and so everything was in a couple of hours, actually. I mean, all the staff who was able to work from home was working from home basically immediately, and the terminal staff was and is still also diverted into several groups, and everything is running, and the whole operational part of the whole port and all in every terminal is running steadily. So the most strange thing is that in Germany, we have national regulations and regional regulations and local regulations, and to put that, and then on a weekly basis, and that's different all the time. So that's quite a challenge to be on top of all these regulations. I mean, nobody is even traveling anymore anywhere, and so basically we are working from home, and the staff in the terminals is perfectly prepared and is doing very well.
Thank you, Axel. And so now it's to our mid-session break. I'd like to thank again our sponsors, Senalia, Telestack, North Seaport, FedNav, Ruxurvitel, and Fleet Management. We're going to show some brilliant promotional videos for them now, but don't go anywhere to everybody around the world. Stay right there. We'll be back with some of your questions, and we'll start probably with some questions on environment protection and the use of technology. So stay tuned for these messages from our sponsors.
The world is a beautiful place. We know. We've seen a lot of it. But it is also getting more and more complex every day. It's our mission to make it simpler with new technology, fresh ideas, and proven expertise, which create a seamless shipping and cargo handling experience for our customers. We never do things the easy way. We do them the right way. The right way for you, and the right way for our planet. From the Great Lakes to the Arctic and seas beyond. We always deliver a higher standard. FedNav. The world is complex. We navigate it.
hear that? That's the sound of progress. 25 years of the absolute best. Shipping? Well, yes, but so much more. We are planners, builders, fixers, both off and on shore. 20,000 strong. Sailing 1% of the world's containers, 2% of commodities. Not just on time, but with the highest levels of safety. And don't forget sustainability. Every route we map is carefully drawn, crisscrossing the globe dawn to dawn. So while they cheer and give awards, we are focused on our mission. What's that? You want to know why we do what we do? We believe in always striving for better and having a smile on your faces. We don't just manage ships, we support people in all sorts of places. We pioneer, invent, and break new ice. Because when you grow, we grow. Organically, together, to new heights. That's the Fleet Way.
I'm going to start the second half with a question on environment protection, because certainly before the pandemic, a lot of ports were moving towards decarbonisation and reduction of CO2 emissions. And it'd be interesting to see how that's been affected during this time. So, we'll start with Astrid. How has the crisis impacted the move to environmentally friendly technology in North Sea ports?
Okay. Well, as we said before, the demand on the fossil products has been strongly declining, and the question is still when or whether this will reach the pre-corona volumes again in the future. Nevertheless, while the focus on energy and the move towards environmentally friendly technologies, as well as the energy transition, is key in our future strategy. And we must say that during the crisis, so over the last months, North Sea Port has only seen a clear progress in terms of projects regarding sustainable energy and circular economy. Let me just maybe briefly give me two examples to illustrate this point. Both are very recent examples of actually last week. The first is the decision of Cargill to construct a new biodiesel plant in Belgium. It's a multi-waste and residues based biodiesel plant. So it will be the first plant in Europe capable of processing all kinds of feedstocks, including also acid oils from vegetable oil, refining liquid residues from industrial processes, but even fed from sewage sludge coming from the local municipalities. So this has been a very innovative project. And a second one that was launched last week is what we call the North Sea Methanol project. And this has been set up by 10 partners in North Sea ports, aiming to reduce annually CO2 emissions by 140,000 tons. Not just this, but also generate locally 44,000 tons of green methanol. And this can again be used as a feedstock for chemicals and renewable industries, but also fuel for ships and trains. So, we are quite proud of this world-class project, and it's expected to be the largest renewable hydrogen to methanol complex in the world. So, we still move on in terms of energy projects, regardless of the current pandemic.
Excellent. Okay. And the same question on environmentally friendly issues to Roger.
Well, thanks, Ray. Here it's obviously you have to distinguish between environmentally friendly measures which are related to the type of cargo we handle, which is dusty to say the least, clinker, cement, aggregates, limestone. So we're taking a lot of measures for dust suppression. In terms of energy efficiency, most of the industries we serve, and particularly the cement industries, are obviously very reliant on fossil fuels and still coal-based for now. It is an older industry, so we see new clinker plants going forward. They will probably go for newer technology. We do see the newer plants going for energy efficient measures like reusing gas and steam from their plants to generate their own energy. For ourselves in the port, when we replace the cranes now, we're going for diesel electric mobile harbor cranes. We're also looking for to provide shore power, but typically the type of vessels that come to our ports are somewhat older and they're not geared as yet for shore power. So that is a bit of a challenge. The warehouses that we have, we are looking to equip those with solar panels to at least be energy sufficient ourselves. So it's not a massive amount of things we can do because we can't change the industry. The construction industry by nature is our power guzzlers. But we are doing our bit as a port, even looking for electrical vehicles within the port. So those are the type of initiatives that we've set ourselves going forward, because also our main shipping lines, the Olden Doors of this world, they are looking for that because they need to have their credit points to their carbon footprint as well. So it goes hand in hand, but we're asking particularly the ship management companies what they expect from us, what we can do, and those will be part for our plans going forward.
Okay, Stuart, the same question to you, and I'm really thinking about whether the measures that you were putting in before the pandemic struck. I mean, have they been affected by what's gone on over the last 7 or 8 months?
Frankly, no, I don't think so. And we already made a start with getting as much of the mobile plant as possible converted to electric. More difficult on the bolts, but nevertheless, we're now changing. All our forklift trucks are electric now, and we are now looking at doing our tug masters changed, and also little simple things like the office is entirely solar powered now. Which those initiatives started last November, and the panels got put in March, and they were incredibly effective. I have to say, it really surprised me. It wasn't my idea, by the way. Somebody else in the company came up with this, and it's already giving us money back from the grid every day. So it's powering the entire office, plus. So it's 30,000 square feet, I think. All the cars that people drive now, all the company cars are electric, and now we're busy converting all their vans and equipment to electric. So that's about as good as we can do at the moment. Going forward, the other big advantage to it, the big drive really would be at what point we try and change think about the fueling trains. With either hydrogen or electric. So we're loading 9 trains a day at the moment. So that would be a big thing if we could do that.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. Rodney, the same question to you, and bearing in mind you're very environmentally aware because of the nature of your group and what the other divisions are involved in. So over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, we we have another division within the corporate group, Senexen, that's in the environmental sector. So it forces us all to be a little bit better. And and I don't want to sound glib, but when you think of the pandemic, the reality is it really didn't have an impact on what we do. Our reports are out there, and as Roger was saying, a lot of the products we handle are extremely dusty. So we're already doing the things that we need to do. We have taken the opportunity with the downtime, and maybe if the volumes have fallen off for for a period of time to go back and double check to make sure that all of our protocols on our equipment and our safety measures are working to control dust and so on and so forth. But you know, we've always taken the environment very seriously. We work closely with the different agencies in the U.S. and Canada to make sure that we comply with all the various regulations depending on the product. But we're also taking a really close look at, you know, the equipment that we use. Our container terminal put new equipment in that's more energy efficient. We use electric forklifts in a lot of our facilities. We even have conveyors that work that way as well. You know, we're looking at different types of equipment to be more energy efficient, pretty much across the board. But it's you know, given the size of our network, it's a big undertaking. But
okay,
we're working at it.
Okay, good. Wim, over to you and the environmentally aware port of Antwerp during this time.
Well, thank you, Ray. Well, the Port of Antwerp being a very large chemical cluster, a real industrial port, obviously is very concerned with regard to the environment. Although most of the companies in our port already are very, let's say, at the global top of being environmentally friendly, there's still a long way to go. And I would like to refer to our CEO, Jacques van der Merwe, who last year at the United Nations made a bold statement to make Port of Antwerp carbon-free within the next decades. And that is, I think, a strong commitment. It's not only the Port Authority. Obviously, we have our own activities. We operate a 30 tugboat fleet. We have a lot of ships of our own with emissions. But basically, other than that, also the community inside our port has committed to do so and to do what is necessary. I see the measures that are taking and that are underway in various fields. With regard to the ships visiting our port, we aim to become a multi-fuel port and to gradually abandon the heavy fuel, but in favor of LNG, onshore capabilities of getting electricity, allowing vessels to stop their generators whilst being in the port. Many initiatives, hydrogen even, a recent project announced by Compagnie Maritime Belge, a very famous Belgian shipping company, together with some partners, that is going to build a hydrogen fueling station for various, let's say, types of transport. That kind of initiative is very much present in our port. We also have, let's say, a strong commitment for this energy transition in respect of capturing and storing and possibly reusing carbon to lower our carbon footprint. And obviously, what is also extremely important, we are strong promoters and we have a master plan in that to realize a significant modal shift in favor of rail transport and barge transport. By all means, these transport modes are less polluting than what we know today of truck. So I think in general, the Port of Antwerp, the message that we bring is that we are on top of things and that we are a front runner in respect of energy transition. We strongly believe in that, and that also we look at ourselves and we sweep our own pavement because that basically is necessary. We all need to do our fair bit of the effort. I think also to conclude that this is the opportunity which Europe has. The Green Deal and and the necessity of becoming environmentally more friendly is something that is also the philosophy and the vision of the port.
Okay, thank you. And Axel, yeah, the same question about the Port of Hamburg, and again, any lessons learned? I mean, any initiatives that have speeded up, or have you been hindered by this pandemic?
Nothing ended actually, and we are since years and since decades already in the transition of energy transformation, and as Antwerp as well, we are front runner of this energy transition and these emission issues together with the port, which is especially in Hamburg, which the port is just in the middle of a big city and a metropolitan region. So we have this environmental issues very, very on top of our list. And the port and the city state, they are very, very aware of the thing that we have to do something. And so we have started that already very, very long ago. And the federal government and the northern coastal countries in Germany have created, for example, a project in order to be the front runner in hydrogen production for everything, for industry, for energy production, for transport issues, and so on and so on. So we have already put in place a project where we have to have 20% of the hydrogen being produced here in green hydrogen with green energy up to 2030. So that means that we have to put 3 up to 5 gigawatt on electrolyzing, has to be new installed in the region of Hamburg. And this, there are a lot of projects. So we have together with our northern neighboring country or regional country, which is Schleswig-Holstein, close to Hamburg. We have together a project which is called Energy 4.0 and 4.0, and we have in that project we have 90 projects implemented, which are working on technology to store this energy, to get hydrogen produced from wind energy, and so on and so on and so on. And a lot of things are being done already. So as the other ports, we have to do it. We have to be prepared for the future. We have to do a lot of different things in order to have an idea at the end to be prepared for the future. I mean, there's no one solution. There's not the solution hydrogen, and there's not the solution LNG, but everything is helping us to get to the point to be better, to have better emissions or less emissions. And of course, it's very important to have these rules. We have to be carbon-free until whatever, but to work on that and to be on top of that and to create solutions. That's what we are doing and where we are very, very active in, actually.
Okay, good. I'm just going to ask one more question as a round robin to everyone, and then we'll get on to some individual questions that have come in from our audience. The question, maybe if I'll start with Rodney, is on new technology and how you've used it during the pandemic to support remote working, but also maybe to try and boost efficiency. And what I'm really looking for our listening audience is what has worked and what hasn't, and have you had to change tack?
You look at a couple different parts of that question. Back in the middle of March, when the government's pretty much shut everything down here in Canada, we went from everyone working in our office to essentially being working from home almost overnight. So the technology and the things that our IT department were able to do to make that a reality were quite impressive. And then in the terminals, we've tried to automate as much as we can in our day-to-day operation, whether it's the way that we handle trucks in and out through the gate, the way that paperwork is handled, the way that we interact with the vessels, the way that we exchange information with the port authorities. So we've tried to automate as much of that as we can, just to minimize, to control the exposure to risk and minimize the interaction between people. It's been quite a challenge. It's some ports have been able to adapt to it a lot more quickly than others. But generally speaking, I'd say it's been a very successful transition for us. And you know, I don't see it changing anytime soon as we wrap up 2020 and move into next year. And you know, and you know, our team of our operations team are looking for more ways to automate and to reduce potential exposures.
Good. Okay. Thanks, Rodney. And the same question again to Roger on new technology.
Well, Sucker Port historically, I always compared it with a petrol station. You could come 24/7, unannounced, any day of the week, any hour. And at some point we had to tell our customers that is no longer on the menu because we may be short of staff. So we did a couple of things. We introduced a cargo forecasting system, which is a bit unusual in the bulk industry. But that was crucial to plan our resources better. And we took actually advantage of the situation in pushing these things through, because typically dry bulk, and particularly in the mineral sector, this is a very archaic industry with a lot of paperwork. So we use the opportunity to actually implement a few new ground rules to abide to stimulate good behavior. And just to give you an idea, we have about 1 million truck movements in and out, so 2 million truck movements per year, and that still is done manually. So we are shifting towards a port community system also for that, which is unusual. Typically, port community systems are related to container traffic. There's not a great deal on the market available for bulk sectors. So we have used this opportunity to do this with the argument to maintain the same service levels as we had before. And that it's still work in progress, and it's a challenge on some days, but we're getting there. I think there's a lot more efficiency now with less meetings, physical meetings, and more Teams meetings. So you have quicker ops meetings with all the entities concerned. Even with their handheld phones, you have a quick 15-minute recalibration, and that has worked pretty well. And also, our customers see the benefit of that now. Typically, there's not a great deal of sharing of information in the supply chain. Everybody, it's a kind of an organic process, which has been working remarkably well. But we come to a new era now to give you an idea, our average rate to load cargo is €1.80. So we cannot shave off €4 because we don't even get €2. So in our case, it's cents that we shave off the supply chain cost by turning the trucks quicker around. So we have been able to demonstrate that to our customers, and this worked well. So we've used the opportunity actually to make a quantum leap in data gathering and data share.
Excellent. Okay. Stuart, the same question to you and the use of technology during this period.
Yeah, actually, it has just provoked a little bit of a drive towards remote. We're looking seriously at more remote controlled machinery now, and we actually sent some guys overseas. I can't actually say I signed an NDA with the supplier, but we actually sent some guys overseas recently, and they drove a bulldozer, which we're very keen to stop having drivers in the hold of ships, particularly on scrap vessels. They managed to drive a bulldozer from 120 miles away.
Yeah.
They made a good job of it, sitting in the office. in a remote control. Really quite impressive. So I was quite pleased with that. I think we're going to take that forward. And then similar to the other guys, we've enhanced stock control systems, that kind of thing. And also for training purposes in toolbox talks, I mentioned earlier, face block technology and face recognition technology for signing into toolbox talks and health and safety, and also reminders when people get in machines, so face block reminders about what to do for check systems.
Good.
Like that. So
yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Great.
Other than that, no.
Yeah, a lot. Astrid, the same question to you on technical advances.
Yes, well, a lot of things have been mentioned already by the previous panelists, so I will not repeat all of these measures. Let's say a lot of those things are very recognizable. Let me maybe just add two very practical examples, just to, I don't know, share or exchange with you. In terms of the nautical department, well, those were the people, for example, who had to be physically in the office, whereas all the others almost virtually worked from home. So those teams from the nautical department were set up and organized in such a way that they were physically really kept very strictly separated, so that there was no contact whatsoever between those teams, always to have the backup teams in case of illness in one team. So the communication between those teams went strictly electronically only. And then, for example, in spring, when the crisis was very new to all of us, we hardly knew what was really happening to us. We set up the task force. Of course, we did many meetings like we do now, and WebEx and Teams and Skype and everything. But sometimes it was very necessary to contact each other very quickly, 24/7, let's say. And then, well, we had the North Sea ports WhatsApp task force groups, and these things just have helped us very much to respond very quickly, because by the time you set up meetings, etc., this was just a very quick way of response. Very practical, but well, other things have been mentioned before by previous panelists.
That's good. Okay, good. Wim, same question to you, and on technology advances during these last 6 or 7 months. Wim, are you there?
Hello.
Hello, Wim. Yeah, the same question to you on technology during the pandemic.
Okay. Well, over the last couple of months, we've been stepping up our efforts with regard to digitalization. You know that we are, to say the least, a very traditional industry, a very important industry, the maritime industry, but it's still working in a very conservative way. So digitalization of the information flow is of extreme importance to increase efficiency, and that's also technology. With regard to that, we have a daughter company, Nextport, who established and implemented what is called bulk chain, and that's a data sharing platform where all the actors can share their data in order to improve the efficiency of the logistic chain. And that is something that can easily also be rolled out to dry bulk commodities. Other than that, I think it's also worthwhile mentioning that apart from a number of very practical implementations, which are really very specific for certain companies, I think it's also important to mention that as a member of IPSCA, you know, IPSCA is the International Port Communication System Association. What's in a name? But it launched in the month of July of this year an important initiative called Network of Trusted Networks, and which aims to connect the port community systems as much as possible. so that also ports can communicate and send data to the benefit of the users of and the trade developers. If you look at that, in a couple of months alone, more than 70 ports in the world already joined that initiative. And that is, I think, a very strong message. There is an increased need for digital innovation. The technology is there, and increasingly we will see it being used to optimize and make the also dry bulk sector more efficient.
Okay, thank you, Wim. And again, finally to Axel on this one.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, there's always coming a lot new, of course, but as we are already since decades trying to develop this digitalization, and if you take one example, is that data communication or port communication system we have initiated in 1985 on a digital way, and this is running since years here, and nothing is on paper anymore since I'm in business, actually. And so I can invite the colleagues to see our system here, which is running perfectly also for dry bulk or liquid bulk or whatever is being involved there. The complete data communication system is digitalized, and including custom clearance, including phytosanitary, including dangerous goods, everything is in there, and no one in the port is working at all with papers anymore since 20 years, I guess. And so there are a lot of other things which we are trying to put forward, and what we have initiated a couple of years ago, for example, is this Hamburg Vessel Coordination Center, so that we are able to coordinate all the ships which are getting to the port of Hamburg from wherever. So we are tracking the ships from Gibraltar, complete North Sea and Baltic Sea as well, in order to optimize the arrival dates, to optimize the speed, for example, if there's a ship coming up to Hamburg and it is not necessary to go full speed in order to be the first one at the terminal, and then you have to wait there for whatever days because you're not able to berth. So that's being optimized in beforehand, so that you can communicate with the owners and with the captains that slow down, you have to be there at this time, and then you save money, you save energy, you save fuel, and everybody is completely relaxed because it's very smooth. You get there and you get on the berth, and then the operational is starting immediately. For example, there are hundreds of different digital systems which we have already in Hamburg.
Good. Okay, that's great. It's amazing how time moves on, and I'm going to come to some questions now from our viewers, and I'm going to ask that you answer them fairly quickly. We make this round quick fire, and then we'll get on to some closing remarks, because we don't want to overrun by too much, but we will do by just a little. Well, a question come in from Antwerp, actually, for Roger Glasgow in the UAE, from Antwerp Stevedore. How does Roger see development in the Middle East region? Will it become more import, export, or transit area?
It depends on the commodity. For agri-bulk, it will definitely remain an import area. For the minerals it produces, it will be predominantly an export area. On the fuels needed for the cement industry, that's coal, petcoke, furnace slag, it will remain an import area. I don't see this part of the Gulf as a transshipment hub for bulk because of the additional Warwick's premium. You have to pass the Straits of Hormuz, so that's not really a major upward that I see. However, there are not many ports can handle Cape-sized vessels in the Gulf, so there may be an opportunity to lighter vessels in some of the bigger ports like ourselves.
Okay.
But I don't see, at least in the dry bulk sector, a huge optimum. It's a pretty static picture, and that's not going to change at least in the next, well, the next 5 years. I see a rather stable position there.
Okay, thank you, Roger. One's come in for Stuart from one of his neighbours actually in Portsmouth. Has been beneficial to your company during this period?
Oh, I missed the first half of the question. Sorry.
Has sticking with your core business of handling bulk cargoes been beneficial to your company during this period? And that's come in from a neighbour in Portsmouth.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it has. It's been very beneficial. It's a steady business. We're quite a diverse company now. So bulks makes up, I said, 25 to 30%. Cruise is a disaster for us, obviously, which again makes up 25% of the business. But bulks has compensated in part, and container storage and handling has further reduced that risk. So yeah,
okay,
sticking to our knitting has been good.
Right. Thank you, Stuart. Astrid, a question from you for you from Switzerland. Your results were in the black in 2019. What are your expectations for 2020? Also with regards to transshipments this year.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, so in general, we expect so that we can more or less flatten the curve, let's say, by the end of the year. When we look into two different aspects, well, we do see a difference. Let me just explain. In regards of the maritime transshipment, and we expect to be, well, to need a little more time to catch up and to be at the same pace again as 2019. This will probably take the entire year of 2021 to keep up again with this pace. In terms of room for investment and investment projects and concessions that we are handling in the port, this is still going really very quickly at the moment. So this is less impacted, let's say, by the crisis. So in terms of the maritime traffic, we hope to be there back on track, let's say, by 2020.
Okay, good. Wim, there's one for you. It's from Germany, and I know it's from an equipment manufacturer. Bear with me, I'll read it out. There are always a lot of extra costs and time lost with port entry procedures. These have become worse during the time of Corona. I would suggest sharing intelligence procedure to speed up this extra cost that nobody wants to pay. Any comments?
Well, it's very difficult to answer such a question unless you know the specifics. But if the
I know that this is an equipment manufacturer, so maybe they're looking to get onto the port to maintain equipment. But also, I've heard a similar issue from ship suppliers. You know, getting access to ships and just getting onto the docks, ships chandlers, and so on.
Well, you caught me there. I'm not a big specialist or expert in that matter, but I will gladly check it out. If you give me the coordinates of the people that asked this question, I will gladly respond in the coming days. But I must quite frankly admit that I'm not aware or not experienced in this.
Right. Yeah. Yes, Wim, but that's a perfect answer. So we'll be in touch. Okay, and Axel, another one which touches back to technology. A question from India: what are your views on autonomous shipping and the use of artificial intelligence for that? So unmanned vessels coming into the port of Hamburg.
I guess that will happen. I'm pretty doubtful that I will see it in my lifetime. But of course, we have already autonomous drones, we have autonomous submarines running in the port, we have autonomous trucks running in the port and cars running in the port. We even have public transportation being started this week in Hamburg in an autonomous autobus. So it's happening. It's of course in a status where I would say, especially in a country like Germany, there are a hell of a lot of regulations involved and before it really starts. And for me, on shipping, it not comes down to the point actually, because there are not so many people involved in running a big, huge ship, transporting a hell of a lot of cargo. And I mean, maybe trains, maybe cars, maybe smaller things are first, and then at the end, flights, I would guess. But before we are getting to the flights, we can get to the ships. But I don't see the necessity of having this autonomous ships running around the world.
Okay, good. And the last question in this round, before we get to the closing remarks, to Rodney, how do you manage the operation of terminals in such differing climates from Arctic to tropical conditions?
That's a good question. You know, we're basically set up our operations team by regions. So we have teams that are specialists that really just deal with the Arctic and the cold weather. When it comes to the South, I think there's a long list of people in our company that want the opportunity to run those facilities. But the problems are kind of the same. You know, you have to deal with extreme cold like you do extreme heat, extreme sun. Making sure people are hydrated and so on. So our health and safety team, with the port managers, they create working procedures and protocols, and we review them monthly, and we do everything we can to keep everyone safe. It really comes down to just having the procedures in place.
Brilliant. Oh, okay, Rodney. Okay, I'm going to come to the closing remarks now, and there really are lots of questions that I didn't get to, but time moves on, and I'll come to Roger first. But if I can just throw in a little question that you might want to answer while you're giving us your closing remarks, and that is, what type of recovery can we expect, assuming that COVID-19 will continue into next year? What maybe a chance to, if you dare, to make some kind of forecast or prediction. But that, along with your closing remarks, please, Roger.
Well, I'm an optimist by nature. I don't believe in these doom and gloom predictions, to be honest. I think we human beings are very resilient and very resourceful to deal with these kind of things, and we see that happening already. So we're looking pretty optimistically to 2021 going forward for our particular type of business. For the containers is probably a slightly different matter altogether. What you will see some more near sourcing. I think people will be less inclined to have just-in-time supply chain solutions. So people will probably create more buffer stocks to be less vulnerable to another downturn of some sorts. I think the bulk industry as a whole should, and I take on board this point on data sharing, that has kicked in very well in the container sector, but I think in the dry bulk sector, this will be the next step to do as well. There's still a great deal of silo thinking in that industry. Everybody thinks he's smarter than his neighbor, but I think really that is what we will be looking for going forward.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Wim. Did you hear Wim?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, your closing remarks and maybe any predictions you might like to make as to how you think 2021 will go.
I think we still have a hard period ahead of us here in Europe, but across the globe. I think COVID-19 is not over yet, and it may take much longer than we initially expected. Even if there's a vaccine or whatever, I think it will take a lot of time to come back to normal. If you look at what the predictions of EMF or OECD or PricewaterhouseCoopers all predict for next year a negative figure and ranging from 4 to 6%. If you take into account that China is now boasting almost 5% growth again, a real V-shaped recovery, I don't see that happening to the same extent in the rest of the world. That being said, I think it's important to keep the longer-term vision ahead. If you look at the last 7 years, the dry bulk industry grew significantly. There was, I think, over the last 7 years, an increase in volume of 20%, a total increase. Even if next year is a negative one, I think we can safely say that there are a number of factors that will necessitate, let's say, further growth. Not in the least the growth of population, not in the least of the growth of, let's say, industrialization or, let's say, people moving to cities. It's going to have its impact. And we think that here in Europe, with a special focus on environment and green, I think it will also create opportunities for Europe. And we are prepared to take those opportunities. I think together with many other ports in our range, I think you will see also much more collaboration between ports in the future. And I think that is the hopeful message that I would like to bring.
Very good. Axel, your closing remarks.
Yes, as port, you can't change the general situation where we're living in, actually, but as a port, you have to prepare yourself to be prepared for the future and to be on top of your topics, what you have on your own pavement. And that's what we're trying to do. And as Wim already said, we are collaborating a lot between the ports as well. And there are a lot of projects as well that will lead into the future to better communication and better digitalization on this in that respect. And so I'm pretty positive, as when we have done our homework as a port in order to be prepared for our clients, to have our operations and hinterland connections running. That's something which is very, very important in Hamburg as well, as the European rail port. We are, of course, putting a lot of pressure on the infrastructure on rail in the hinterland, because we have close to 50% of the cargo on rail. And that's what we are concentrating on, and we are quite positive in the future, looking into the future. Thank you.
Good. Astrid, over to you.
Yes, I think it's an excellent time to rethink a number of paradigms in our maritime world, and some shifts that are already taking place. We talked about some of them already during this seminar. How can we speed up shifts in terms of energy efficient and multi-fuel strategies? How can we speed up the digital transformation? How can we speed up the modal shifts or the transport flows? These are the questions now that are really popping up even more than maybe a few months ago. And what is our role as a port in our ecosystem with our stakeholders around us? We are part of this world with so many players that we are linked with, our clients, but also our governments, the people living around the ports. So not just our own ecosystem, but also the cooperation between ports, because these are just the kind of challenges that we have to tackle together. It was mentioned before by previous panelists. Cooperation will be key. This is not to compete on. This is something to tackle together. And so this is also the message I would like to make across. Maybe just to finish, I've learned that the Chinese character of the word crisis, it actually entails two parts, and that's both danger as well as opportunity. So this is something maybe to keep in mind for the future.
Very good. Thank you. Stuart, over to you, your final remarks and any any crystal ball gazing for 2021? How do you think it's going to be?
For me, this whole thing has really restored my faith in human nature, really. The response of my management and staff to this crisis has been really exceptional. It's been innovative and delivered with a real empathy, which has helped people cope with it. So I'm delighted about that. I'm very positive about the future. I believe that as an industry and as a company, we'll overcome and prosper. And I think we'll like to do it, as always, through new ideas with young people and new technology. And I think it's going to be a brave and exciting new world. And I wish to Christ I was 16 and not 60. That's it.
Very good, very good. Okay, and the final word with you, Rodney, in Canada.
Thank you, Ray. You know, I think to say we're living in historic times is a bit of an understatement. And, you know, I look back at the last, 6 months or so, and, so proud of what everyone has accomplished in our company. And, we have of our 60 some odd terminals, we've been open every day. People have come to work, we've kept them safe. People have rallied together. And not just amongst ourselves, even with some of the competitors that we work with in ports, we've worked together, which is maybe something you wouldn't have seen in the past. So I think that's a really nice thing. The biggest challenge that we have, especially south of the border, where the case count is soaring every day, is, you have all these protocols, you're trying to keep your employees safe, you're messaging with them every day about all the things they have to do. But then the minute they cross the gate and go home, well, restaurants are fully open, bars are fully open, no one's wearing a mask. The politicians are telling them everything's okay. So it's very hard to counter that message. So, when I look forward, next week is a big week here in North America, and it's going to have a big impact on how we finish the year with this pandemic, and how we start 2021 and how we move through next year. I tend to be an optimist as well. My view, and I think you and I talked about this, Ray, but my view of the pandemic is maybe a little bit different because I'm a surviving corona. I had the virus back in April, so my view is maybe a little bit different. We're going to have, we're about to start our winter. Things are harsh. Then you enter, springtime, summer season. So I really don't see anything changing in terms of protocols and what we have to do at least until Q2 or Q3 of next year. On the volume side, things have started to bounce back nicely. 2020 is going to finish quite strong. 2021 will continue to increase. It may not be V-shape like some of the other panelists have been talking about, but it is improving. But it's all going to depend on how widespread the shutdowns are and how we stand together against the virus. And, I think what's really important here is that we use this as a time to reassess how we do things, whether it's modernizing our labor relations, finding better handling procedures, and we're all going to come through this stronger on the other side and better for it.
Thank you, Rodney. That's a brilliant note to finish on. And, when you started speaking this morning, it was pitch black outside of your window, and now it's a blue sky. So it's been great to see the sunrise over Montreal. Thank you, all of our panelists. It's been excellent. I mean, I'm only sorry that we didn't have more time to get to some of the questions I wanted to ask on supply chain and global trade patterns and infrastructure projects you may have. Maybe another time. We've learnt a lot, I think, from a new cargo forecasting system in the Middle East to Stuart's concern for the mental well-being of his staff, and a lot of things in between, and a lot of favourable signs. Thank you to our sponsors, to Sonalia, Telestack, North Sea Port, FedNav, Brooks Sovitel, and Fleet Management. Thank you to everybody for watching. When we go off screen, you'll be asked for your feedback. There'll be a form will come up automatically, and please let us have it, everybody, as many as can, because that's how we aim to improve for next time. Thank you all for being with us, and until the next IBJ webinar on the 30th of November on bulk ship owners, operators and managers. Goodbye and stay safe.